Hello everyone, welcome to a brand new edition of Kick Ons, the number one destination after the footy, and we've got an unbelievable team of superstars. Their number one voice in footy, and the other guy was a tagger for Port Adelaide. Welcome Kane and Josh.
Good start, Richo. No, good to be here as we get our teeth into the season and the storylines start to emerge, and there's a couple of teams under the pump today, which JJ and I are going to have a look at.
Hello, Joshy boy.
Yes, Jason. Thanks for welcoming me back. You never know these days. Now, last week I didn't get to have my 15 seconds on Tex Walker and why he should be in the Adelaide Crows best 22.
Yes.
I've crunched the numbers during the week and I'm going to have my rebuttal a little bit later.
Very much looking forward to that, and you're in great form at the moment when it comes to steering our audience into some lucrative tips, my friend. Allow us to blow a little wind up your skirt.
Go for it.
This is what we've seen during the week. Nailed that one. Concern, 9,166 followers and only 47 had faith in you, my friend.
That's an issue.
That is, well, I mean, the joke's on them because we're going back. And that's back to back on the back of getting it done last week with Benny King as well. So if you're not following, you need to start following and copying, Richo, because we're getting it done.
That's exactly right. And also you continued on and you've been nailing it on the feed. A little pot shot at our man as well.
Well, this was a Friday morning version, Fireball Friday, where Kane and Kingy destroy everyone in their path.
Yeah.
But we all pick an anytime goal scorer, which we all did. And Kane said, oh, look, I'm so good at this. Give me Sam Darcy for 3 or more. And I thought, here we go. What could go wrong? But Kane...
10 minutes into the second quarter, done. It was achieved. So we just sat back and we enjoyed. But what about that man, Sam Darcy?
Wow.
And what a future he has. I haven't been this excited about a player in a long, long time. I think it's phenomenal. What we're seeing is ability not only to mark the footy, Richo, but to use it as well, either foot. So you'd be pretty pumped if you're a Western Bulldogs fan knowing you can support this guy for the next 10 years.
And you even had a comparison with Wayne Carey, which is a smidgen strong. But the numbers...
and not just the numbers, the feel of it. Like, I haven't been this excited about a player since the early 90s when young Wayne Carey emerged. I thought, what is this guy? Now, different players, of course, but I just think that's the influence that he will be able to have. And the Western Bulldogs have just got to maximise this period when you've got such a dominant force.
Please follow us on the feed. We're desperate to get our numbers
How
up.
are your numbers going?
Well, I've only just started. I've been a week in.
You got one, though, last week.
Yes, and I think I've got 1,000. So I'm just building nice and slowly, if you don't mind. Let's get stuck into the big topics in the world of footy, and we start with the winless teams. The heat is on.
The heat will be building, and there's a couple of coaches under pressure. So Carlton, Melbourne and Fremantle, 0 and 2. Of those three, who are you most concerned about, JJ?
Well, for different reasons, probably Carlton, because I think we might be quickly learning and quickly establishing they're not where they thought they were and we thought they were. I've been low on Melbourne for 2 years. That's why I sort of put them in a different category. Fremantle, I'm still willing to hold.
Yeah, good call.
Because you've taught me that, Richo. Just hold and get an assessment. They get West Coast this week. They should be able to get the job done. But probably the Blues would be my biggest concern.
Yeah, I'm a bit worried about Melbourne just because of the way that their issues are starting to look the same, but worse, because they were so strong around the footy and they always have been for the last, under Simon Goodwin. Now they've lost that with North Melbourne smacking them there. Yep, early days, but also their inefficiencies going forward as well. And their inability to score, I think it was 9 goals from 56 entries. So those same issues are still there for Simon Goodwin and the D's.
Inefficiencies, bad kicking. And I saw it firsthand Thursday night, Carlton versus Hawthorn. Hawthorn were just like a surgeon with their kicking versus Carlton, very different.
And it's so obvious, isn't it? When you've got a team who's a really good kicker of the footy collectively versus a team who can't move the ball. That's why you see a team get really stagnant. And look, Sard has been a good kick on occasion, and he would nail some of these kicks in his absolute peak form. But at the moment, when you take confidence away from a player, you think you've got less time, so you don't steady, you don't find and compose yourself, Kane. And that's what we're seeing, particularly from Carlton and Melbourne.
No doubt. And the game moves in trends. And I think when Hawthorn won all those premierships under Alistair Clarkson, they all had great users off the back. Here's Melbourne as well with their issues. If you don't have 2, 3, 4... 5 or 6 great distributors of the footy through the midfield and across half-back, you're in all sorts of trouble. And Melbourne butchered it, absolutely butchered it. They kept kicking it to that man, Charlie Comben, who took 8 intercept marks. And this is the drop-off from the Blues and where their kick rating, according to Champion Data, sits.
And these, I asked the question to Champion Data, expecting these types of results, because that's what you see in the games. And it's great when the numbers back you up. So these are your expected kick ratings, and these guys are just through the floor when it comes to what they should be doing with ball in hand. And it gets worse when you look at Melbourne's numbers. So, look, put Max Gawn to the side. He's a ruckman, whatever. He does get a lot of the footy, though, so that's a problem. But when you've got Rivers and Fritsch, who's not getting a lot of the footy, and Chandler and Salem, who are supposed to be among their better kicks, that's why the Ds, some of those kicks, not only are they turnovers, you can't defend them. So they're not goals for you, they're actually goals for the other team, and that's what we saw from the Kangaroos against Melbourne. So big concerns.
Gee, finish in the bottom 4, $2.88. They're up against the Gold Coast this weekend.
Yeah, that's a big game. That is a big game because Gold Coast away from home have been poor. This one's at the MCG. So in terms of a big game for the round, all eyes on Melbourne and how they respond. I mean, there'll be 22,000 at the MCG. The fans will drop off pretty quickly. So they need to start winning for this season to be at least relevant.
Over and under 22,000. I'm going to take unders.
Really?
Would you?
I'd take unders at 22,000
Well, it's
people
not
there.
snow season. It's still 35 degrees.
Gone missing. Jai Amos, you've put as someone's gone missing.
Well, I've put him in the, not in the gun, but for Fremantle, we've got our concerns about. Now, this guy's been a low possession, high goal scoring forward, but he's not kicking goals. So only the 1 goal through 2 weeks. He's barely touched the footy. Josh Tracy threatened to take the game away from Sydney last week. He just needs a wingman. Jai Amos is ranked number 30 in the AFL for winning contests inside forward 50. Now, he'll win them like that, but that's almost the only way we've seen him get the footy. And he's number 5 at Fremantle for retaining possession for his team when he's the targeted forward. So he's a key forward, and he's only number 5, Kane, for keeping possession for his team when the ball is kicked at him. So when he's inside 50, you don't have confidence to kick it to him.
They need him. They need him badly. And I was really confident in Fremantle and the list that they've established over a long period of time. They've invested heavily in it. And Tracy and Amos were 2 of the young, exciting forwards as a duo coming through. But you're right, Amos has got to step up because Tracy, we know, has emerged as a genuine star in the game.
Just watch. Anytime we put someone under the pump, they do deliver. Are the Crows the real deal?
Yes,
do you believe?
Yes, Richo, yes, they are the real deal. They can capable of playing in a prelim final this year. That's how good they are. Now, they haven't beaten anyone yet, so let's just put that to the side.
Yep.
St Kilda at Adelaide Oval are hopeless, and they have been for a number of years, and then the Bombers are probably also hopeless as well. They're probably going to be 6-0, I reckon.
Wow.
I think their next... 4 out of
50 to make top 4.
4 out of their next 5 are at the Adelaide Oval, so a great opportunity to just get yourself right into the teeth of the season with a good win-loss. Midfield's strong. Their backline is underrated, I think, with Worrell and Hinge and Michaelini and these players, and their forward line is firing.
And they're slick. So the best version, I thought they lent away from what made them a really strong team in 2023 when they're the highest scoring team in the competition.
They were boring last year.
They were boring. They went away from this stuff, and they've got back to their ball use, their slick, kicks inside forward 50. You can't defend this type of stuff. Big Thilthorpe's getting on the end of it. He's a great kick. And these forwards, Fogarty, Thilthorpe, Benny Keys, Josh Rochelle, these guys are absolutely just salivating, Richo, because of the delivery inside forward 50.
Yeah, I mean, and this goal was the best goal of the year so far.
Agreed.
Now, it's not going to win the goal of the year, but to this point, it's been the best one. He was subbed out, so they were conservative with rank, and hopefully he's okay. But yeah, I think the test is going to come when a good opposition brings serious heat to the Crows, because that was circle work, that was pre-season sort of stuff, 120-odd marks, 20 marks inside forward 50 and a huge score. But I don't think that test is going to come for the Crows in the next month or so.
Now, I didn't get my opportunity to defend Big Tex.
Go on, give us your Tex line.
But the numbers stack up. So when Tex is in the team, Darcy Fogarty's numbers are better. They're more improved. So this is Fogarty with Walker.
Yeah.
His disposals are up. His score involvements are up. And when he's targeted, I think this is probably the key, when he's targeted inside forward 50, he's up as well. So Walker does enough in these games to take some attention away from... Don't look at me like that.
So Tex is a decoy.
To take some, not necessarily a decoy, but he's moving into that space where he's understanding. I think I've seen him get up the ground. He played a full game on the weekend. Get up the ground. We know he's a great distributor. So if Tex can get the ball sort of between the arcs, he can be the one setting up Fogarty, because he's got a good defender on his backside, and Fogarty's got plenty. Don't look at me like that.
It's a big, crowded forward line, and I look at the best teams there have a smaller forward line. Look what Hawthorn are doing, just the one key forward. Tex is cumbersome, as is the thrill seeker, as is Fogarty. In a big final, when the ball is on the ground a lot and the opposition can waltz it out of their D50, it is a watch. Now, I don't care what he does against Essendon on the MCG when it is circle work and no pressure. Give me him in a big final and let's see how he goes. And add Curtin in there as well. He's not a small player as well.
He's the one for me. And I know he's a kid, so it's a kid versus a guy toward the end of his career. But if we are looking at a finals campaign, Curtin's the one I'd have out before Tex Walker because he doesn't necessarily fit the bill in terms of what they're trying to do. So Curtin's Curtin's 6'4" as well. Yeah. So he brings height and size to that forward line as well. So I think Curtin fits less than Tex does because of Tex's ability around a forward 50. But I agree, it's a watch. It's something we can follow. But thus far, points go to Jenkins.
Okay, so just repeating for our graphic, so for history, Jenkins says that Tex is the best decoy since Brownless. Just get that organised.
And of course he's going to defend his mate.
Of course he does.
Did he play with him? Yeah, he played with him. They're good mates. Doesn't want to offend Big Tex, so that's okay.
He's final.
Loyal. He's loyal.
Yeah, I love it, mate. I love loyalty. Grand final preview down in Lonnie, if you don't mind.
How good.
It's going to be close. Honestly, and Tassie Hawthorn play that ground so well, and they're so set. They've got their routine down there. So I expect Hawthorn to win, particularly with the form that they're in. And the poor old Giants go all around the country. Speaking of Adelaide playing 4 of the next 5 at home, the Giants hardly go home in the next 6 weeks. So they have the most brutal travel schedule of any team, and
ridiculous.
We do not consider the disadvantage it is for them. These Victorian teams play at home. They don't even care about the others that have to travel. The AFL don't care. So no wonder that the Hawks are going to start.
I agree with that because, look, the Giants contribute because they play some games in Canberra, some home games in Canberra, so they've got to get on a plane or a bus to do that as well. James Sicily, I wonder whether this is a game because maybe Orchol's going to be working sort of one out against really elite key defenders in Buckley and Taylor. Yeah. So I wonder whether Sicily goes forward in this contest to try and help out aerially, which we know results in goals. So I'll just have a little look, listen to the pre-game interviews, listen to the messaging from the coaches and from the teams. If you get the sense that Sicily's going to go forward, more than, say, a quarter, I'd have something on him for a couple.
It's always good when you're there, if you're at the ground, to see what you're having shots at goal in the warm-up.
Can you head down to Lonnie for us?
Okay, I'll do that. I'll be our cover reporter.
Spies down there.
Yeah, I'd love to get down there. But what I saw on Thursday night is suddenly how much they structure up differently with those 2 big ins down back.
Frightening.
Gee, they're good recruits for them, aren't they?
Unbelievable. And isn't it better to be sometimes lucky than good? Because the Hawks went after Ben Mackay and they went after your man Asava Radigalia, my man from the Cats, missed on both, which 12 months later lands them Barras and Battle, and these two guys through a couple of weeks of the season look sensational.
They look amazing, and you've all played in a game where you've had an absolute bath. Like you've just copped the bath. You haven't touched it, or your opponent has just got a hold of you. Gary Ablett one day just absolutely torched me at 35. I gave away 7 free kicks against the biggest bath I've ever had. Charlie Curnow copped the warmest bath I think I've ever seen from Josh Battle. Now, he was on the pickle juice. He was getting a rub down at quarter time. So Michael Voss shouldn't have played him. That was a clear mistake.
Get a game into him. He looked underdone.
Well, you can do that in other ways. You can't do that on the Thursday night against very good opposition. And he was embarrassed, and it wasn't his fault because he wasn't prepared. The club set him up to fail. But that was a huge bath. So we'll just see how Charlie can ease himself into the season.
He'll hopefully bounce back. Tell me about the Cats. So who put this on the agenda about their midfield showing cracks?
I reckon their midfield's a genuine concern. Well, have a look at the names that... So the starting centre bounce worried me, and I actually wondered whether it sent a strange signal maybe to the rest of the team. So you've got Mitch Nevitt, Tom Atkins, Jack Bowes and Sam de Koning. That is not a star-studded midfield group. Dangerfield played forward in this game for the first 25 minutes, did not touch the footy, and the game actually changed when he went into the centre bounces. Their ruck breakdown is really interesting. We'll get to that in a moment, but it gave the Saints opportunities.
Yeah, I don't mind their midfield because a lot of it revolves around the high half forwards coming up as well. So you can't just look at the 3 and 4 that start in there. You've got to look at Myers, you've got to look at Close, you've got to look at Dempsey in that. But there's the ruck contest.
What do you make of that?
Well, this has been an issue for them for years, and they continually neglect the ruck position. Geelong, hard to be critical though because they've had success doing it. De Koning is a centre-half back for me and needs to be one of the best centre-half backs in the game. So I think they're disrupting his development by doing that. And it's a miss that they haven't identified a competitive ruckman. I would have gone after your man, Rolly O'Brien, in the off-season. I think he's the perfect ruck for them. Just a competitor, bash and crash. Doesn't take up a huge portion of your salary cap, but that's not going to be solved at any stage this year.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. They're sort of rucking by committee. And Rowan Marshall was best on ground. I thought he was the best player on the ground. He gave them a bath.
I'm not sure that's right, though.
That looks a little tight for Brisbane.
I think so.
Yeah, way too
They
skinny.
conceded the first 5 against West Coast, and Geelong will respond. Good teams
Geelong
too.
beat them in. It's expected to be wet and slippery up there, and Geelong handled Brisbane in the rain last year. Now, we know Brisbane were going pretty poorly at the time, but yeah, I reckon it's the season of bounce backs, Richo. When you see a team play poorly, you butter up and you go again.
And as soon as we put the heat on one of the players, they bounce back as well. I've got the shot clock ready because we need to tackle some big topics, and the shot clock is on. Lonnie why is Launceston, beautiful Launceston on the shot clock?
Embarrassing. I like that because Tommy Barris will be in the house. It'd be better if this game was at the MCG. Is there much more that needs to be said?
I'll tell you what is embarrassing is that we have 2 best games of the round starting at exactly the same time.
It's been rescheduled.
What? Yeah, well, you couldn't have rescheduled it for a Sunday or in a different time
5-day
slot
break.
too.
It would have been a 5-day turn for one of the teams. I understand. I actually had a look at why they did that.
2 good games starting at exactly the same time.
Doesn't make a lot of sense.
No.
We've got only 2 games on Sunday as well. This is a tough decision. Sam Darcy or Nick Dacos? Who are you picking?
This is the hardest
Nick
decision.
Dacos, I'll tell you why. The game is set up for midfielders. 120 stoppages a game. Nick Dacos is going to be around the footy that many times. He gets that much more opportunity to impact the game because he's at 120 stoppages.
Yeah, I just think they're so hard to come by, and if you've got one, grab one.
They do nothing in finals.
Nick Dacos is, there are...
He does nothing in finals.
Key forwards do nothing in
There
finals.
are midfielders that
experience.
can be as influential.
Mate, you and your bloody tracky pants
Tell me
sitting
the
here,
last-
you wouldn't be here if it wasn't for that.
I reckon I got 2 seconds of that shot clock. I'll take Sam Darcy, Richo.
2 seconds too many. Which Saints do you want to believe in?
Well,
Neither.
Not these ones. No, I mean, they're going to be a competitive team at times, but I think they're still going to finish bottom 4.
I reckon they're somewhere in the middle. So they're not as bad as what we saw against Adelaide.
Bottom
and then
6?
They're not as good as what we saw against... Yeah, they're bottom 6, maybe bottom 4.
Let me steal 10 seconds and go over to North or the Bombers. Who's closer to a flake? That's an interesting question.
North, just because they've finished down the bottom for so long. They've had access to the top end of the draft, and we're starting to see a few of those come through. We know about Sheasel, but then they've got others coming along for the ride, like Comben. Curtis is a really good player. I still think they're a key position defender short. Not that confident in Toby Pink and Aiden Core and the like. So that's an area of weakness for them. But the midfield is stacked and their forward line is starting to look really dangerous.
Don't take Paul Curtis from me. We'll get to him in a moment because he is a stud small forward. Bombers are just starting to feel the pain, don't you think? They're just realising where they're at.
Now, Freo versus West Coast for the Derby. If you are Freo, how hard do you go at a young man that you've...
So hard because he's vulnerable, and this is a tough competitive game. We're not playing nice football, as my old coach Mark Williams would say. Don't play athletics, play football, Richo, is what he used to say. So go after him, get in his face and make life hard for him because he's shown he's vulnerable.
Yeah, well, they have to. When I read this, I took this as how hard do you go for him in a contractual obligation? Do you try and bring him to your footy club? But look, on the field this weekend, you've got to go after him because he has shown he's vulnerable to that stuff.
Kano's going to continue to put people under notice. You're watching Kick Ons. Hope you're enjoying it. Welcome back to Kick Ons, and Paul Curtis, the pride of Keilor, has certainly hit the 2025 season in style. 3 games under the roof, and JJ, you've got your eyes on this young man.
I have been able to see the talent for some time, so it'd be a fend off and a blazer goal, but he might miss it. It's just that small stuff, a great ground ball or a big tackle inside forward 50. it hadn't all come together for him. It looks like it's starting to come together for him. He plays very similar to a Tyson Stengel, and we know he's been an All-Australian small forward. Have a look at the rankings, small sample size, but top 10 in all these stats across the AFL. He'd be in an All-Australian forward pocket, not wanting to put words in your mouth.
That's a good point, because I've sat in All-Australian meetings and
rolled your eyes at some other
for a couple of years, that too, Richo. I'm not rolling my eyes at this, because we're going, who's the best small forward in the game? Who wants to command the All-Australian small forward spot? And at times you're going, we're not exactly sure, and it's come down to the last 1 or 2 games. So I think the opportunity is there for someone like Curtis to put his hand up and go, you know what, Charlie Cameron, I got this. Tyson Stengel, I got this. I am the game's best small forward. I think that's how good he can be.
He's got it in him, and I reckon against the Crows, not an obvious matchup for him. 2 goals plus, let's get on that.
Yeah, and I reckon you were going to be picking 2, maybe even 3 small forwards in the All-Australian. That's how much the game has changed, I would have thought. You put someone on notice who has responded, and when you put them on notice, they tend to respond. Ross the Boss.
I hope they do. Yeah, Ross the Boss responded because he was too nice. He was cuddly. Got back to that demanding Ross, and you saw that from his team. But Cam Rayner's on notice.
Yes,
I'm on Premiership hangover watch here. He's got the Premiership medal around his neck. He's got the 7-year extension. He's got the comfortability factor.
3 games.
And he's complacent, Richo. So just on notice, I watched the game against West Coast. I didn't notice him at all. 8 disposals, didn't impact the score. And you go, oh, Cam Rayner's playing, which is strange because he's far too good to have that thought. He needs to be dominating games of football like we've seen him do sporadically.
He tore up the Cats in the prelim, so he'd have good memories of playing against the Cats. So we'll back in big Cam.
20 plus, 380 for
20 and 2 for Cam.
Rayner.
Okay, yeah, I'm going to see a bounce back. I thought we had a segment called Kane, and you've changed it.
Well, when you get involved and do your silly little thing with your silly little show, Get On.
What happened?
You're in on Get On, your favourite little racing show. You've got to back the horses we should back.
Yeah.
The crack, the ones we really love, and the sack. So this is horses that are all going to get beaten.
Yeah.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong. They all won.
Oh no, Richo.
Well, the very nature of how well I'm tipping at the moment, even the ones that I don't think will win. So that's how well I'm going.
Boys, if you could just give us 4 horses that are going to get beaten, they all win. So how well are you boys going at Get On? Fair income.
Hey, mute his mic. Let's go to a break. You're watching Kick Ons. Get your footy records, get your newspapers. These are the headlines.
Yes, the Gold Coast Suns will shine brightest at the MCG. 3-15 overall in their lifetime against the D's. And they've only played 7 games at the MCG in 7 years, which is a disgrace. But they'll be leaving the MCG as a winner.
Well, I agree with you, JJ, but I've just been slightly more creative. Not so good win for Simon, and it's going to be a rough start for those D's. Richo?
Blue Bag's going to be run off their feet on the fast track under the roof, and Vossi is going to have an SOS to Gout.
Need some speed, you reckon?
We need some speed, says Vossi, and Gout, of course, that's a little shameless plug for him running on Saturday night on Channel 7. From our betting point of view, our footy trip fun, we got our money back. Lukosius had the knee injury sub half time. Get the money back. This is what we're going to do, team.
Rightio.
Freo at the line over the West Coast, and then 2+ goals to Bolton and Amos at $4. We're minus 200 at the moment, so therefore we'll win 300. We'll be 100 in front, and you guys will never have the problem again of the footy trip because I am going to hold it throughout. And also we need our big team multi.
Well,
who's got the first?
Yep,
leg?
JJ.
Yeah, Tyson Stengel 2+ for me. He was a bit quiet against the Saints, but he'll do the job against Brisbane, even if it's raining.
And if the Saints don't win by more than 27.5 against Richmond, who I saw live last week, something is wrong.
And the Bulldogs only have to cover 2.5, if you don't mind.
It's a smart bet because if that gets up, you're happy. And if your Blues get up for once, your heart's happy.
I'll tell you what, thank you, JJ. Hey, Kane, you're awesome on the
Thanks,
front bar,
Richo.
mate. Keep up the good work. Hope you enjoyed the show. See you soon.
What's gambling really costing you? For free and confidential support, call the number on the screen or visit the website.